Welcome. This is another episode of the Oliver Schirach Show. Today I'm the host, but the audio recording is on the other side. So we have some technical issues. And I'm talking, now let's get that right, to Rob Lenfestey.
You got it.
I got it. Yes. And I found you on YouTube. Where did I write down how that is called again?
Convergence Lifestyle.
Exactly, Convergence Lifestyle. And you're not only doing that for 2 months, I think. You also are doing Mandela Springs. You do Mandala chocolates. You're a Wim Hof instructor, a Yogaslacker. You do your own music style. And I think the climbing in nature and all kind of, outdoor activities. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I like to call it. I mean, the reason why I call my brand new YouTube channel Convergence Lifestyle, and the book that I've been writing, that Convergence, is because it is actually about living this dynamic life that has this full spectrum of different holistic and empowering practices, and they all inform each other and help create more creativity around each other. So yeah, I tend to be the anti-specialist in a lot of ways. I like to keep it dynamic and put my hands in just about everything.
Yeah, I've seen one of the videos you have on YouTube that you like to have like 4 things going on in the same time, so you can jump in between the tasks. Is that still correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it's more like teaching them. It's teaching the mind how to perform multiple complex tasks or functions simultaneously, and it's understanding how that happens in the body. Basically, you have to practice something with the conscious mind, which can only handle a few variables at any given moment. And you practice it until it becomes part of the subconscious. Once it's there, then your brain can handle thousands and thousands of variables at the same time. So it's understanding that principle and practicing things specifically to get to that point. So, I can be playing one pattern with my left hand on the piano and one with my right, and having a conversation with you all at the same time. And that only happens through the subconscious mind.
Okay. Now I'm not really prepared to that depth, but let's just go with it, right? I'm neither a specialist. I'm also doing too many things, and the general world will say you have to specialize, right? Because otherwise we cannot put you in a box, and then you cannot work in our society. So, but I can see you're definitely. I like that. What you're talking about is probably more habits, right? If it's on the subconscious,
bringing something into the habitual world. Exactly. And okay. Honestly, and what you just said, my goal is to make this into a new box. Society needs boxes. They want to put you in a box. So let this be a new box, the holistic, multi-level, empowered human. Let that become a new specialty. So that's so that fits that. Yep.
Holistic multi-level empowered human being.
Yep. Let that be a new box for society to sink its teeth into.
Okay, I think I have a title for this episode. Yeah. So yeah, I try to go my flow, my questions, and I'm sure we will go with the flow. So let's say I don't really know you. I just reached out 2 days ago, I think, and now we are sitting here and we have this amazing talk, I'm sure. So if you have to describe yourself with, I normally ask for 3 things, and it can be professionally or private, but I think for you that's anyway all mixed up. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe yourself for someone which doesn't know you, like our listeners here?
Let's see. How would I describe myself in a concise way? So if there's been a single challenge for me in turning, what I'm doing, my lifestyle, into a viable box. It's being able to describe it concisely. And I think really what I do is I seek creative empowerment, and I seek it through as many different avenues as I see are necessary to expand my ability to experience the fullness of what human potential is capable of experiencing. So I look for the black spots, the holes, the places that are atrophied. I look for the things that could inform my reality that I have not developed at least some level of competency in, and I go there. And the way that I can tell that I'm going there is you can almost feel your brain hurt when you're trying to do something new that is outside of your comfort zone, that's requiring mind-body coordination that you've not already garnered. It's there. And, for any given discipline, there's a infinite level of advancement possible. So it's really just making sure that I'm gaining a basic level of competency in most of the important areas of human development, because I believe that they all inform each other. And so that was like totally not a 3-word concise way to describe what I do, but I think I did a pretty good job there.
I didn't ask for 3 words. I just generally ask like 3 things to describe. Some people say I'm an open person. I'm challenging the status quo, and you know these answers, right?
Oh, of course, so. Yeah. And it's just for every one of those answers I could give, a lot of times, then in my mind immediately I see the negation. I'm like, yes, but the other, like the balance. So that's where that becomes more difficult to really define myself, is because it's like, there's certain ways that being open are the most important, but you have to know when to close a loop and when to open it in order to grow effectively. Because if you just stay completely open at all times, you're not necessarily going to be growing effectively. You're going to be dispersing your energy too much in any given moment. So it's just an example of how yes and, as far as anything that I would describe myself as in any given moment. I just lost you. You're muted. I can't hear you. There you are.
What?
I couldn't hear you for a moment. Now I can.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I could hear you perfectly. That's being the part of being a host. So you cannot hear people. No, but with what you just said, you opened the door for a weekly podcast with me and you, finding out what creativity is. Now, but let's try to keep it on this episode for now.
Sure.
It's great. I mean, what you say, opening and closing, and I just like, my brain went all the ways, because if you're always open, right, you just try to absorb new things all the time instead of growing on this one thing you are, and then open up again and add and grow a different way. Is that the way you try to say it, or? Yeah,
essentially, if you're just staying completely open to whatever the experience is bringing at any given moment, I mean, there is a level to which that's necessary. That's kind of how you get new inspiration and new ideas of what you want to put your time and energy into. But then you've got to close the loop so that you can focus and actually practice and gain competency in something and grow in something and be able to actually expand your competency in any given discipline. And that's a lifetime refinement of knowing when it's appropriate to open up and to start receiving more creative ideas about what you want to spend your time on, and when you want to really close that loop, focus and practice. And that's part of the art. And I think there's that's something that there's no definite formula for. It's more as you experiment and as you go about life doing these kinds of things, it's something that you refine over time and get better and better at. So you're not wasting energy. You're not dissipating or dispersing your energy in inefficient ways. You're maximizing your growth potential in any given moment, and without compromising your creativity. You know, the extreme of this is the specialist who stays hyper focused and hyper narrow in their discipline, and they don't ever open up. And so there's all of these other avenues and aspects of their own creativity that they don't ever explore. And I think their specialty suffers for it, because the way that our synapses work in our brain, at least, if we want to just focus on the brain and the synapses, is they all interconnect. So if I learn a piano pattern, it's going to create synapses. It's going to exercise a part of my brain that I've never used before. But the key there is those synapses aren't just dedicated to that piano pattern. Those synapses are now reaching out, sending out new connections to all these other parts of my brain. So like new potentials that I wasn't even looking for around getting on a Slackline or some sort of movement pattern that I'm working on are going to exist. I'm going to gain new creative perspective on every single thing that I do from anything that I practice. So what this does is it creates the innovator. That is, if you want to put somebody living this kind of lifestyle into a box, it's the innovator. Because any problem that I am approaching with a much wider perspective of experienced reality than somebody who's, say, a specialist. A specialist might go so far into mastering their little profession, but they're going to stay kind of in a creative box of their own creation relative to it. When you spend your time really endeavoring to stay evenly skilled within the holistic spectrum of human experience, then you're able to look at any given specialty that someone else would have with an innovative mind, and you're able to be an innovator within it, even if you're not the super prodigal master of that discipline. So it's extremely valuable. It's one of the most important roles that can exist in any discipline. And it's what's fun about it is you don't have to take the path towards that exceptional mastery that only comes if you were to focus yourself entirely on one thing. Now, what I do think is as you learn to learn, because that's what this is, it's about learning how to learn well. I think that you actually gain greater competency in anything you're doing more rapidly. So you're not necessarily like that focused, specialized master, but you're going to have a completely unique creative relationship to whatever you do, whether it's playing music or moving or creating a holistic chocolate or food business, creating a retreat center, whatever it is you're doing, you're going to have it's going to be informed by a wider and broader spectrum of creative potential. And that's kind of the key juice, the essence of my perspective strategy and what I'm doing in the world.
Wow. My brain has like all these boxes now, which I want to ask you. It's just so many questions I could ask. To keep my flow, I know probably it's breaking the flow a bit, but let's see where it's going, because I ask my guests normally the color question. I don't know if you have heard it. It's like, if you're a new color in a crayon box, what color would you be and why?
Oh, I like that. So let's see. I would be a color that changes based on the medium that you're drawing on. So literally, you take this one crayon, it's probably going to be some indistinct color, like when you're looking at it. But as soon as you start drawing on this type of paper, it has a completely different color than when you start drawing on this other type of paper. So it's a crayon whose color is changed by the medium that you're coloring onto.
And why?
Because that is exactly the way that I function in the world. It's like the way that I perform and the way that I behave is changes based on the medium. So if I'm out in the woods and I'm in nature and I'm moving on all fours, there's a different behavior. There's different layers of my personality, different layers of the way that I function that are happening than when I am sitting here on a podcast in front of a computer with a microphone in my face, than if I'm on a stage in front of 3,000 people playing the piano with a band. They're like the color, which is essentially like my personality, what I share. A crayon shares its color with the medium. So I'm whatever that color is, it's going to actually change dynamically depending on the medium. And of course, there's always the aspect of the personality. A crayon is always a crayon, no matter, what medium you're coloring onto. But it's being able to color in a dynamic way. This is a smart crayon too. It's not just changing. It's not just changing its color based on what you're drawing on, but it's actively paying attention to the medium that it's drawing on, and it's choosing the color that seems most appropriate for that medium in any given moment. So it's not just random. We're talking about the crayon of the future here.
Oh, we just made an episode on crayon. Super. That's like, wow. Very, very creative. I can see you really absorbing. And don't ask the question about the sound note, because I've asked some musician what sound note they would be. I can changing. You press once the button and it changes the feeling. So these questions are meant to, break the ice, but you broke it from the first tone. If you had, perhaps you're up to that question as well. If you have a secret not many people know, and I have to be careful how I ask it. It's not like a dirty secret. It's more like something. It could be a habit you do, or something people wouldn't expect you to do. It could be like you're dancing around in a pink tutu all the time. When no one is watching, or you have like a secret room with all kind of toad sculptures, something like that.
I'm sure I've got plenty. Well, the thing is because of the way that I live in the world, there's not much that people wouldn't expect from me at this point. And it could be pretty like out there and radical, and it wouldn't necessarily not fit in the life that I've created, but I don't necessarily.
They expect you to do that.
They expect me to do the unexpected.
Yes. So, okay. I mean, you answered it perfectly. But when I see you, you're really you like this jack of many trades thing, because you learn something new and you can use it in a different way, in a way some people wouldn't expect it, because it keeps your brain active, your body active, your spirit. So when you were younger, how were you? Have you always been like that? How has the path been to become this kind of, master of learning?
So that's actually a great question. And it actually ties back into your last question, like the answer there. Like, so essentially, as a child and in growing up in general, part of what has allowed me to get to the point that I am is that it was not easy for me to fit in to a normative cultural reality as it was for other children. I struggled. So I wasn't like the easy things, the easy like behaviors that you just mimic from your friends and that you mimic from society and the way that people interact with each other. Something wasn't connecting in the same way for me as a child. So I was always really kind of clueless about social norms, and it created a lot of issues for me. And it was a lot of confusion around that too, because I was getting a lot of negative feedback as a child from my behavior.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I was getting tons of negative feedback, but I didn't have any tools to understand why or what I was actually doing that was creating the negative feedback. And there was no system in place to support me in understanding what was different and why. So, and there wasn't much at that time for the adults. They were doing the best they could with the tools they had, but they didn't understand either. So long story short, it ended up creating lots of patterns of feeling very just wrong, as it like inherently not right. And that, that tumbled into, and granted, this whole time it's like I'm playing music, I'm writing songs, I've got entire fantasy worlds that I've created. Definitely helped my creativity in that regard. I created intricate worlds that I could escape into in my creative realm and in my mind. But in my, day-to-day physical reality, it was kind of miserable. I didn't necessarily think myself worthy of love, worthy of friendship. I kind of, on a social scale, placed myself at the bottom of the totem pole. Not conscientiously, but definitively. And so I was very much an outcast, very much marginalized. Have two sisters that socialized phenomenally and were very they're just 1 year and 2 years younger than me. And so it was also juxtaposed and witnessing them just easily succeeding in all of these ways that I was a kid. I didn't have the tools to even analyze or cognize what was actually happening, but I look back at my writings. I was always writing. I've got journals going back to the age of 10. And when I look at some of the things I was writing, it's like there was a part of me that knew like that there was a special opportunity built in to the way that I was perceiving the world and the way that I was functioning, but it didn't know how to articulate it. It didn't know how to harness it. And I was miserable. And as a teenager, I mean, granted, teenagers are teenagers. Like everyone, there's a modicum of self-loathing and drama and all the rest. But I had a pretty intense level of that. And it wasn't until I moved to the mountains, actually, and met a lot of other amazing freaks and people who were, whose minds worked differently and were engaging in reality in a different way. I started rock climbing. I was 215 pounds in high school.
I can see where that comes from.
Yep. I was big. I was a big guy.
Protecting yourself. You protected yourself. The body
Absolutely.
protected yourself from the social attacks or being wrong, right?
Exactly. And kids are brutal, because I didn't have an aggressive bone in my body, first and foremost.
Yeah.
I didn't have that inherent anger, or rather violence piece. I played football, but I was always the worst on the team. I never really played much. I was just on the team. It kept me at least healthy, or healthier, but because I didn't have any of the aggression or that to get out. But I just basically put that aggression on myself, and my body was protecting itself. But as soon as I didn't need that, literally overnight, it did not even take weeks from the moment that I moved up into the mountains to becoming obsessed with rock climbing, becoming obsessed with it. And I got super healthy, and I never once made a decision like I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to get healthy. It never was that. All it was I found this sport that everyone around me is supporting me. So you got all these people, rather than a team sport, and this competitiveness, it's like people are saying, go, 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 you could do this, and they're like supporting you, and it's problem solving. So my mathematical mind and my problem solving mind, it's like trying to get this move, and I barely can't get to it, and I try it over and over again and it seems impossible. Then suddenly I tweak my hip like a half of a degree, and I turn in my knee just ever so slightly, and suddenly this thing that was impossible and I couldn't do over and over again, I get it. And then every single time I try it now, afterwards, I get it every single time. And it then grows and grows. There's no limit to this. I can just keep getting better and better at it forever. So I became obsessed. I also started playing improvisational music with friends. I started getting into more bands that did more avant-garde and improvisational stuff. I started just pushing my boundaries with music in significant ways. And I literally just found myself pretty quickly. It didn't take long for me to find a conducive environment where I could just be myself and actually be not just accepted, but appreciated in that, to very rapidly just slip into the way that my mind is able to function. And I realized that one of the greatest gifts I got as a child is all I ever wanted to be was normal as a kid. All I ever wanted was for people to just like me in that same normal way that I saw other kids. And what that did is it really helped me to bridge a lot of my communication skills through a back door that have allowed me to go from being able to, having a difficult time communicating with the normative reality and with people of the culture, to being able to build an exceptional skill in communication because I've had to wire it through the back door. So I have an extra creative leverage and innovative leverage there, because it wasn't something that was just automatically subconsciously imprinted. I had to actually work on it, create it, and I had to analyze all of the different subtleties of how people communicated in order to get there. So it's like there's so many gifts tied up into this, but yeah, there is definitely inherent way that my mind worked that was not understood as a child, was actually seen as problematic, but has become the basis of a lot of what I teach and share, and am helping other people to be able to unlock at this point in my life.
Okay. Yeah, I take a few notes for the show notes afterwards. I only have 4,000 letters, but so I learned to be creative. But I can see, so you talk now about the communication you had to build up because you were, I mean, there's a lot of psychology questions I have as well. But so you build up this communication skill, which is outstanding and creative. How do you see that working with the other skills you have? Are you using that communication skill to communicate with music, body language, or other things? Or is it just the verbal communication?
That is such a great question because it is everything. So the way that I move, like the way that my body moves is atypical to a standard, habitually patterned Western body. And part of that is because I didn't connect those habitual patterns the way that most children do as kids. So I actually, this is a funny example, but as a small child, I was already squatting on a toilet. And when you're taught to sit, my body did not want to do it. I couldn't do it. So I would squat up on the rim of the toilet. And at one point, one of my sisters accidentally walked in on me, saw me squatting up there. Then they started telling on me and I was getting in trouble for it. So all the adults were like saying, you can't do that. That's wrong. What are you doing? And my sisters actually found out that they could, if I was in the bathroom, they'd go and look under the door. And if they didn't see feet, they'd go be like, Robbie's squatting on the toilet again. And the thing is even getting in trouble for it, it was so inherent to what it wasn't some conscious thing. It wasn't like I was mentally fighting something. It's just my body knew what it needed to do and did it, that I continued to. I basically can say that I can count on one hand the number of times I've sat on a toilet and in my entire life. And here we are today in this situation where suddenly there's these squatty potties and it's like this massive product and it's the big thing. And everybody's like, yeah, we need to stop sitting down on toilets. We need to start squatting. And this is something that, what I inherently had because I wasn't for, at the time it seemed for worse, but definitely for better ultimately. I wasn't being as easily habitualized into that human communication. And so a lot of that's body communication. I'd say the majority of it, so,
body movements, etc. Right?
Exactly.
So you were not, I have to laugh now that you tell me that just was in the Corona times. Here in Denmark, we are pretty liberal. Not as liberal as the Swedish people, but we can move pretty free. And I just saw these young people just like this cool walk. I'm like, come on, you're 14 years old and you walk like you're like just
little gangster walk, like the swagger.
Yes, exactly. Like, what's that all about? So I can just imagine. But you also said you were 200 pounds overweight, and you say you squat on a toilet, and we have these hanging toilets. So how did that work?
Well, I grew. So I was 215 pounds, and I had a big belly, but a lot of it was very well dispersed around my body. I was just big in general. The thing is you got to imagine I was squatting on toilets my entire life. So my body developed around that behavior. So my hips, the flexibility in my hips, the flexibility in my ankles and my knees, the way that all of my joints and my lower back, especially like lower back mobility, all of these things from a very early age developed to support that behavior. So even as I got bigger, and I didn't get bigger until I was a teenager. Okay. I was hyper active as a child. I was climbing trees and I was doing all the stuff. So
you were climbing trees, right? And
yeah.
You go in the mountains and climbing
rocks. Yeah.
Rocks. Yeah. But I was just thinking, when you're grown up, these rims are not really big, but we don't have to go into details. But you said about these squatty potties. I haven't heard about that in Europe.
It's, well, at least in the United States, it's this huge product right now. There are these little stools that slide underneath your toilet. You slide it out and you put your feet on it, and it creates that physiologically correct squatting position that lines up your colon in a way that allows the body to eliminate appropriately. So it's a huge product, multi-million dollar thing. People are starting to catch up with the idea that that the sitting position is a horrible way to eliminate. It blocks the colon. It doesn't allow things to flow properly. Human physiology is designed to squat, not just on the toilet, but in general. That's meant to be a physiologically natural resting position for the human body. So in the Western culture, we've become so inured to sitting, just sitting in chairs, and the way that like blocks off the energy flow in the hips into the thighs. It changes our relationship between our ankles, our knees, our hips, everything. It creates locked up energy. It actually fuses the spine in the lumbar, so like people's lower backs. It just creates problems all the way up the chain. So even when I'm sitting in chairs, I like to squat. I'm trying to figure out how to get those paddles on my steering wheel in my car that people who are disabled have, so I can squat. In my car. No, seriously, because
squat in the car.
Because I can feel the detriment. I feel the detriment of long hours of sitting in the normalized standard Western way that everyone is taught to sit, and it's physiologically inherently wrong. There's no way to justify it as right because you can see the inherent damage it does to the physical body. So, so in my mind, it's like, well, I'm going to find every possible way to augment reality so that I can be in that physiologically coherent position. And that's including driving a car. I want the paddles so I don't have to use my feet, so I can squat in my have a squatomobile,
Yeah. Now that with the e-mobile and the self-driving cars, but you could still look into, after the chocolate and everything you do, to have your own brand for cars, so you can squat.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But you're right. I mean, it's about 5 years ago that I started working out with a friend, and I didn't do leg squats because I blacked out many times. And he said, go ass to the grass, right? Go really deep. And I couldn't in the beginning. It hurt my knee. But only after a month already, the knee pain was gone from squatting.
Yes.
And but I also have colon issues, and been operated for bleeding. So I think, who knows if the squatting would help. Because
and just in a resting position, trying to get to the point where you can squat on a flat surface with your heels on the ground and feel not just comfortable, but actually in a resting position. Most Westerners, if they try to squat flat-footed on the ground without their knees spread super wide, even with their knees spread super wide, it is a position that requires a lot of effort. It puts a lot of strain on the lower back. It puts a lot of strain on the knees and the hips and the ankles. And that is due to a lifetime of this other physiological pattern that we've been taught. It goes with the breathing. This is a perfect example. Like, habitually, you look at little tiny children up to the age of about 3, and they've got beautiful breathing. You see the breath go straight into the belly. It fills up to the top of the chest and then goes back down. It's amazing to watch. And then around the age of 4, the child will habitually, like without even knowing what's happening, they will imprint the breathing pattern of the adults around them. And then next thing you know, the diaphragm starts working in reverse. It starts to expand on the inhale rather than contract. And therefore it actually blocks airflow to the bottom half of the lungs. And you have these people doing this very shallow, short chest breathing. And the bottom half of the lungs contains 70% of our potential air exchange. So people will spend their entire lives reverse diaphragm breathing, with their diaphragm literally sabotaging their ability to even get air into the bottom half of their lungs. And it's not just air exchange. Your lungs expanding, especially the bottom of your lungs, is one of the primary ways that all of your internal organs that are surrounding the lungs are designed to detoxify. They require that pressure from the inside to help to palpitate and to literally help them detoxify. So it's this chain reaction of cultural habits that are sabotaging people's ability to find even that basic modicum of personal health. So with the Wim Hof method, before I spend a lot of time teaching Westerners how to breathe the way that they were when they were 3 years old, before they subconsciously integrated this new habit. And it's amazing what percentage, like the vast majority of Western society, is reverse diaphragm breathing and not even getting that full potential. It's not just that. When you're chest breathing, it doesn't allow your body to get that hit that I need to go into a parasympathetic state, to go into that rest and relax.
Okay, so how will you teach that? Because I have 2 kids, 6 and 9, or soon to be 9. And I've that with the squat, I know since they're very small, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, it's the ankles, which are the big problem. When I go down, and then of course my lower back hurts, and I have problems for very long. And for a year, I have the bleeding, right? So I have been operated, and who knows if that is an issue. But I can sit with white angles. Now, that's what I do now. But the breath, I realize when I'm very relaxed, I'm breathing very little and slow. And I was not aware that we were copying others how to breathe. I mean, how to move. Yes, I can see that, right? Because you have the cool shoulders and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And also with the squatting, because like, hey, get out of here. And I'm getting so annoyed when I see parents take on the shoes and the kids take off the shoes. Hey, you have to take on the shoes. Like, don't let them. I mean, they need to use the feet on the floor. And I'm so happy that my daughter can do like spread her toes like we do with the fingers, because I cannot. And I'm like, can you show me, just to enforce that she's continuing doing it, right? Because I think that's a really good thing that she does.
That's awesome. Yeah.
My son has a bit more problems, but he sees his sister doing it. But with the breath, how to teach it? I mean, while you were talking about it, I'm like, when I breathe in, I breathe it into my belly. And then, like the Wim Hof says, right, you breathe into your belly and you expand it. And then it goes back up to your chest. And then you just let it out. You don't press it out. Also when normal breath, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So the way to reteach, and that means you're breathing correctly. If the air fills your belly first, then it's working the way it's supposed to. A lot of people, like, the air only fills the chest and that's it. And it never even reaches the belly. So that's a great sign. The way that I teach it, and you can look this up, anyone can look this up, the 3-part breath is the way to retrain yourself to breathe properly. And it involves placing one hand on the belly and one hand on the chest. And you start breathing, and the goal is to first have the hand on the belly expand out, then have the space in between the hands expand out, then the chest expand out. So you want the space in between your hands to stay relatively still while your hand expands out. Then you want that hand on your chest to still stay pretty still while the center expands. Then the top. Then you want that to reverse. You want the hand over your chest to collapse, the space in between, and then the belly. And that way people can start to feel and get a sense of that flow. For most people who've been reverse diaphragm breathing, that actually, to feel the diaphragm like working properly in that moment will actually feel strange, and it'll require a lot of energy. It'll almost be exhausting to them because the diaphragm isn't used, it's a muscle and it's been atrophied. So luckily, because it is the way that we evolved, and this is with a lot of these patterns, even though we have a lifetime of habitually doing it wrong, there is a physiological inclination to do it right. So it's a habit that is much easier for us to embody. Like just doing it consciously a little bit every day. If you do a regular Wim Hof practice, it's the perfect time to practice that. You'll find yourself very quickly breathing correctly. And it seems like you've already got the proper breath going.
But I've also been using your YouTube video for a week now or 2 weeks, and
awesome.
Some other Wim Hof. I mean, as I said before, I don't know if I said it in the podcast. It's with Tim Ferriss having Wim Hof on his show in 2015. I started to look at it, but I didn't really know what to do because there were not really videos out, and you need to do it some kind of right? Because also in your video, you really like breathe in, breathe out. And I had a course in November, and it really like, he explains, really go into your belly, fill it up into your chest and let it out. And don't press it out, just let it out. Exactly. So I don't know if that has changed since I started in November doing it with the breath or not. But I've also played football, soccer. Mm-hmm. I did martial arts. And there you also need to focus. But I can see for many people, not breathing in the belly might be vanity, right? You don't want to have a big belly, but you want to have a big chest.
Yep. Well, and it's one of these things that if you have that level of self-consciousness, you'll probably just exaggerate the not belly breathing, and you'll probably really like have a even more limited. As when I got big, for example, I was extremely self-conscious of my belly. Like I didn't want photographs. All of my photos showed me with my arms kind of crossed, like hiding, that sucks. And so, yeah, there is a psychological pattern there, but it just goes so much deeper than that. Like you see people who have no awareness whatsoever. They have no like conscious or even subconscious, like vanity based reason. They just simply watched their anxious parents and anxious adults and then all the kids around them just habitually breathing in this way and without even knowing what was happening. That's how powerful cultural habits are. They breathe the exact same way. And it is so common. It's actually more common in our culture than people breathing correctly. And that's part of the source of all of this anxiety, the fact that people stay in a sympathetic state. So when you say, the Wim Hof method, like you don't push the air out, you just let it out and relax, that's to stimulate that parasympathetic rest and relax nervous system response in the body, because that's what's missing in a lot of people's lives, to the point where a lot of people are staying in a sympathetic nervous system, a fight or flight, active nervous system state, even while they sleep. They're never getting into a full rest and relax, which means their organs are never regenerating. They're not eliminating toxins from their body, and they're not able to function. Like the engine of the body is not able to function at its optimal state, which also means the brain is not able to function at the optimal state. It means you're not able to grow new synapses. If your body is struggling to detoxify and it's not even able to eliminate properly, you're not going to have any energy to grow and innovate and to create new synapses. So the body's got to be functioning well first before the whole learning piece and the whole like creative, innovative learning how to learn stuff is even applicable. Because, if the body stays in a fight or flight state, literally it is that, that's the state of like, hey, I need to run away from this tiger right now. And so it's going to put all of your energy into what is necessary to run away from the tiger. That whole prefrontal cortex, that whole creative thinking, like all innovative part of your brain, it literally shunts blood flow to that part of your brain. Like that is part of being in a sympathetic state. It is purposefully keeping you from using that part of your brain, because it seems like it feels like that's a waste of energy in regards to survival. And so that kind of explains a lot of the kind of atrophy in thought and a lot of the, to be blunt about it, idiocy that we see in Western culture right now. There's a very clear like physiological reason that people are dumb. And it's not because they are inherently dumb, but it's because they've been habitually shown through the world around them from being small children, this fight or flight reality that's literally kept the part of their brain that creates all of the creativity and inspiration and everything else underdeveloped. But what's good about this is that you get the body in line, you get that sympathetic state functioning again, and very quickly and rapidly, you start seeing the prefrontal cortex and all the rest of the brain and the corpus callosum that balances both hemispheres. You start seeing this stuff light up. And it's rapid. You can rapidly increase your level of holistic competency when your body, when you're not fighting your body, essentially.
Yeah. Now we're in the Corona time. So there was a lot of videos and interviews and podcasts talking about many of these things. So it's not only, you put the point to something I haven't really been aware of, but it makes a lot of sense. Like breathing into the belly. So once you use the muscles different. Secondly, you help the organs to detox better. Mm-hmm. Meaning when you sleep, the body needs to detox less because you already threw the breath through the day you have already detoxed some part of it, or a big part probably. If you're with that breath, you also go into the fight or flight mode, because it's, when you're scared, you breathe shallow. And because we are observing others, and that's also movies, right? We also learn from watching movies and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
So who knows where it comes from? Then you're in a constant, tense mode. And I had 10 years of, not sleeping well, etc., and I'm still having problems. And probably my nervous system is still active. Too much, too much on the defense. And still, I'm very creative. So I don't want to know when everything is just balanced out where I'm going to fly. But I can see many things I'm consuming talk about meditation helping out exactly with the same. Mm-hmm. And the Wim Hof is some kind of meditation, because I remember in one of the many talks he has that he was doing meditation and martial arts. And this was also one of the reasons when he was younger, he went into the ice in Holland and kept through the first pain. And after the death of his suicide of his ex-wife or wife, I don't know the exact story, but he must have come back to this habit to help him calm down, right? So, and also when you look at meditation, like all these Asian things, they have a lot of breath work in it. So,
oh yeah. Well, I mean, you look at the Vedic texts, for example. The Vedas are the oldest texts that we have on the planet, and they are the foundational precursor, as far as we have textually, for all Eastern religions. They predate Hinduism, they're foundational, and then it was through Hindu culture that the Buddha came into being, and all of the Buddhism and everything else came from there. And in the most ancient of the Vedic texts, we have multiple pranayamas that are being shared. Breath work. Breath work is an essential part of the most ancient text that we have in existence. It's a part of it. It is part of it. When ancient humans first started scribbling on stones to share something, breath work was included as one of the important things they thought was important to start writing on stone and sharing with future generations. So it's that deep, it's that inherent. And ancient people who weren't being, we don't believe we're being habitually taught to breathe in this really destructive pattern that is so common in our culture right now. Even for them, having these different breath works, the alternate nostril breathing and the breath of fire. Yeah. And I
do that one.
Yeah. I'm a yoga instructor. I teach the breath work. I love Wim Hof method breath work, but it's one type of breath work, and and amongst many, and they all have different things to share. They have different, opportunities that they create. So, breath work is literally one of the foundational practices that has defined humanity for all of known history. And as such, we can say more than likely for all of unknown history as well.
Yeah, no, it's, I started Ayurveda yoga in August. And then he also said like Pranayama, like the, nostril, and hold, the other hand like this.
Mudra, yep.
Yeah, I don't know what it, yeah. And not with the small fingers, the small and the ring finger together with the thumb. Yeah, something like that, because that's activating whatever points. And in the beginning, it was very hard for me just to be 5 minutes like that. And after only 3-4 months, I was doing 25-30 minutes just sitting there. But he said, you should not do it that fast. But somehow my body just knew. And it's like for you, the whole story you're telling me, it's, I just went with the flow, and you have great information there. I'm just wondering, okay, you said you had the problems with copying people, and their behavior, and you knew somehow this was for the good. And I can see you didn't copy the breath. You didn't copy certain things. It's kind of like your body knew, don't do that. But your mind wanted to fight it.
Correct.
Like your body knew how to move. Your body knew what to do. And you were just in the culture, and everyone is copying everyone, because that's what we do, because we want to be part of the group. Because 100 years ago, you might have died if you were not a part of the group, because you were out there. You didn't get food, you didn't get shelter, you didn't get protection. But you just knew it. And then there's the other question for me. It was also, like you said, from about 10 years old, you started journaling. And you also talked about overweight and, like kids are brutal and all this, bad feelings from probably 4 or 5 years of age. I was just thinking, what kind of traumas you must have taken with you from there? Was it helping you to have the journal still intact and going through them again to understand yourself and things you have been forgetting? Or what kind of work did you do to actually get clean with your past and forgive yourself or forgive the people around you or whatever? What was the practice for you to, when I look at you and the work I saw, I'm like, wow, this guy has his shit together. What was the path there? What did you go to overcome for people and I have a lot of people around me which are really struggling mentally, overweight, they cannot get rid of it, they have no energy to work, they don't find work, right? They're stuck somewhere.
So, I mean, that's probably one of the greatest, and that's one of the best questions that could be asked.
So far, what's coming?
I love it. And so this gets into a lot of what I'm doing at Mandala Springs, and a lot of the things that are the reason that I have this property is what I did for myself that I didn't realize why or what I was getting into. I threw myself at the world. I went and camped out, barefoot and eating wild food in the forest. I had wild animals prowling around me, and I had to, find the courage to not show fear. And I threw myself at South America. Actually, at the age of 20, I took a slackline and a djembe to South America with me. And
okay, how long? For
about a year. And I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I had set it up as a permaculture and like my university studies as an internship for that, and to study the Spanish language. But that began a 3.5-year hiatus from university I wasn't aware of that I was going. And it was just this rite of passage. That's the word. That's the big thing. Without realizing what I was doing, I gifted myself something that is fundamental to human evolution, to us becoming mental, emotional, and spiritual adults. So what happens is you have a person who physically grows, but they remain a mental, emotional, and spiritual adolescent till the day they die. That is what Western culture does. And the biggest reason for that is what we're missing are these rites of passage where you are tested, really tested and against the world, where any sense of identity or any sense of what you think you are, what you think you're capable of is really pushed, pulled, and stretched. And, in ancient days, when at a coming of age, when a kid would reach a certain age, especially men, because women all have this, giving birth is an incredible rite of passage. It's utterly insane, but men don't have the equivalent. It's something that, we have to go out and get and across the world, regardless of where they are, and like ancient cultures, tribal cultures, all share that at a coming of age, at some teenage year, the men will go out and have some sort of really profound, physically dangerous like test that'll essentially act as a rite of passage for them. And in lieu of that, people are just expected to slip into that, comfortably numb social reality, get your job, get your house, do your thing. And they've never been tested. They've never seen their limits. They've never stepped outside of their comfort zone enough to know what actually defines their limits and their boundaries. And so one of the biggest things that I did for myself is I threw myself at the world. And for example, I went and accidentally became the youngest person to solo climb Aconcagua, the tallest mountain outside the Himalayas.
Okay.
Where is that?
It's
in Argentina.
I haven't heard about that.
It's the tallest. It's the highest point in the Andes, which makes it the tallest point outside of the Himalayas, and 7,000 meters. And it's. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you were you said you were. You said you went for 1 year, but you were 3.5 years actually in South America. What?
No, when I came back to the United States, I moved. I kept going. I moved everything.
So you were just 3.5 years away from university. So they just didn't know where you are. Okay. Yeah, I just had to ask. Yeah, for the listeners, my daughter just came in. She needs a little bit of attention. You want to listen to what we are talking, or you're just sitting here? Oh, you want me to finish? Okay. Yeah, let's see, Avienda, how long we do it, because I think this is not the last time we are talking with each other.
We can come back to this conversation too anytime.
Avienda, I'll come back to you. I'll finish this episode up, and then we're okay. Okay? Avi, go with me. Okay, Avi, please. Okay. Yes, I'll Avienda, you get me in 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. So much for parents. I'll respect my daughter because I can really see she's really understanding, and actually we can do many episodes, I'm sure, because there's so much wisdom, and I want to talk to you, because this rite of passage, of course it came up to my mind. You mentioned the women with giving birth, and that's why women always say men are just children.
Exactly.
Because many men don't go through that. Native Americans, they have the same rite of passage, I don't know, at the age of 16, 18, whatever.
Exactly.
They send you out for 3 days into the wild with nothing. And last year I've been in a mastermind retreat in Bulgaria, and an American dude living in Slovakia, I think it is, told me, go for 3 days in the forest, no water, nothing, and just stay there. I'm like, no water? Seriously? No food, I can understand. And I tried to answer, and he didn't answer yet. Ask him about where this idea came from, because I saw it on the Indian, Native American passage, rite of pass. And I definitely had several opportunities to do that for myself, but my Western educated mind did not allow it. I was afraid of losing the internship for going to study and all these things. And so I didn't continue when I was in South America. I had the chance to also travel, and I loved it. Just a backpack and just go. I was in Ecuador, and I just loved it. It was a different feeling. And you were also talking about, healing, reducing the nervous system, pranayama, and all these things. What I've also seen, I'm doing a lot of Mind Valley classes with Vishen Lakhiani. I don't know if you have heard of him.
What's his name?
Vishen Lakhiani.
No.
I can give you a link.
Please do.
And before it was Tim Ferriss, the master of everything, and jack of many trades and master of none, which I very much related to. And what you say, I relate even more, because I cannot live with one thing. And Vishen Lakhiani was talking about now I lost my track because I'm going everywhere, but also with the healing and visualization and growing and meditation and feel into your heart. That's where I want to go. That you really feel the heart.
Yes.
And that is healing. And you were talking about learning something new, and all the the brain is making connections all around everywhere. When you're creative for 3 days, you can see that there are brain cells growing in your heart.
Yes. And your gut, actually. Both, like, there's more neurons in your heart and gut than there are in your brain.
Okay, about the gut, I knew you have a lot of bacteria and other not human cells there, which are actually helping you to think gut feeling. And the heart is related to the creativity and the love. And you can actually feel the energy of the heart. And that's why you can feel someone which is completely in, in synchronicity with himself or herself, and just irradiates that love and compassion because you can feel them. And we in the Western world, one thing is we lost the breath, and therefore we are always in the fight or flight mode. So we're not really sleeping. So there's not much more space for love. If there's not a lot of space for love and compassion, there's not much for creativity. That's why we are like sheeps following the leader. And I can see that with this coronavirus. But I don't want to go into that.
But you are touching on something so important, which is learning how to pragmatically get to a point where you can listen to the intelligence of the heart.
Yes.
And start to respond to it, where people spend so much time responding to the thoughts and to the mental projections, starting to really feel and understand the directive and the direction that the heart is asking us to go, and understanding that the intelligence there will lead us into the greatest expressions of what we are capable of as people interconnected. It's the interconnector. It's what gives us the intelligence of connecting to nature, connecting to other people, feeling like we are parts of a whole rather than these separate rogue cells doing our own thing. And that's what helps to dictate the things that I put my priorities into. Like, my priorities are what is going to create the planet, what's going to create the culture that I want to see my great grandchildren inheriting.
Yes, I have the same. I'm on the same path for the last month. I don't know where it comes from. It was always inside me. Jesus, we can have a 5-hour talk. We can go really
over time. We will.
Yes, because there's I want to know, when you had the path, the rite for passage, did you have an awakening, a moment where whoa, you were so filled with love and you just knew where you go, or did that come another time, or
So the answer to that question is a massive yes, but it wasn't. It wasn't just one time. There were distinct moments where my world was blasted open, and everything I thought I knew about anything was completely just laid to waste, and those definitive experiences have utterly changed the way, not only just the way that I literally function on a day-to-day basis, but my priorities in the world.
Yes, it's like an after death, or a close to death experience,
yes.
Which many say doctors, which are a little bit more spiritual doctors, not just academic, they say there are patients which come back from a near-death experience. They change everything.
All the priorities. Yep.
All the priorities. And there was also one person I just saw on the Health Summit. There's in Denmark a documentary this week. And he's working with sound healing. And he said he had a patient which was super rich, had everything. And then he had cancer, and he was said, you have, I don't know, 5 or 6 months to live. And he was selling everything. He bought a boat. He changed the clothes. He got himself out of the company. He went down to California or Florida. I have no idea where. And he took on people to drive around. He said, now I have no more, nothing else. I'm about to die, so I'd better do what I love. And guess what? The cancer was gone. A month after he sold everything. The cancer was his way out of a life which was not meant to be.
Well, the cancer was possessions. The cancer was that life in so many ways.
Yes, exactly. But he said to that guy with the sound, I don't remember the name, that the cancer allowed him to get rid of everything. He doesn't need the cancer anymore, he said, and it was gone.
And it was also a massive blessing to his life. The cancer was the catalyst in so many ways. Like probably something he should be eternally grateful for. Because he rose to the occasion.
Yes. Okay. Let's take that point for our first stop of the interview. Right. So, and then there will be another episode another day. Where can people find you? I mean, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. Where do you want them to reach out for you?
So, I'm really loving my new project, the Convergence Lifestyle, brand new baby channel. But I finally realized that YouTube channel is the way that I can share what matters with the world the most easily. But then, beyond that, I've got this beautiful retreat center with the National Forest on 3 sides out here in the Southern Appalachian Mountains, the single most biodiverse place in the entire subtropical world. So after we're done with quarantine, my goal is to have workshops, retreats, and classes happening here, and simultaneously doing more, YouTube, podcast, various media from here. I release a lot of my music under my name and under Amorphos, which, I'm constantly writing music. I've been teaching classes and building sample packs. Me and my buddy Anthony Thogmartin from Papadozio created an entire sample pack of nature sounds from the land here that we've released, that producers all over the world are using nature sounds from Mandala Springs. And then last but very much not least is my raw, organic, certified B Corp superfood chocolate company. I have a chocolate craftery right here on site. I'm about to release a really exciting video that shows just how much fun it is. Above my production space is a movement space with indoor slacklines and aerial rigging. And surrounding that is a climbing wall that we have set up with all sorts of fun features. It's got these free hanging stalactite features that we have on the climbing wall. So we've just got this really creative, playful space. The chocolate is made right here. I use wildcrafted herbs that I got certified organic for the first time ever that I get from my land, which is also certified organic. It goes so deep. That's why it's... I mean,
that's why we have to have another episode where we actually... I thought I'm going to ask you, about your different products and everything you do, but we went so much down the spiritual path and your story. So that perhaps next time we can focus on that part, so the people get to know all the great products you do. And you are actually also writing on your webpage that you want to, and you also mentioned now, you want to leave something behind for your grandchildren, and you want to be, with respect the nature, respect people. We are Gaia. Whatever, if you're Bill Gates or whoever you are with all these fancy vaccine ideas you have, we all are from this earth. We are part of it, and it's a spirit itself. And I love what you do, so we have to talk about that. And yes, my daughter is calling, so she needs daddy help.
Definitely.
And thanks you for this time. And listeners, you know what you have to do. Keep your eyes open on Facebook, LinkedIn, and my webpage until the next episode is out. And I say thank you for today.
It's been a pleasure. I always enjoy sharing. It's part of my mission. It's why I'm here. So looking forward to the next time.